When one hears the term warrior, one often thinks of many different professions such as soldier, gladiator, mercenary, special ops people, agents, assassins. But within all that, one hardly ever puts in the professions of babysitter or nanny. But in the wacky comic verse of Battle Angel Alita, many of the readers would actually associate that word with those professions. And in fact, within the comic, nannies and babysitters have earned a tremendous amount of respect and admiration as being some of the most interesting warriors that come out in the Battle Angel Alita comic verse. So what's up, people, and welcome to another Battle Angel Alita Last Order comic discussion. And for today, I would like to talk about the warriors who are babysitters and nannies, specifically the Stellar Nursery Society, and how they have influenced the story and have earned the admiration of many other readers. So, as you may imagine, because this is a Battle Angel Alita Last Order discussion, this will be once again a spoiler discussion. And as you probably have understood by seeing other videos that I have made, I will bring out my spoiler alert. If you have not read Battle Angel Alita Last Order to about the middle part of the comic, somewhere in the early parts of the Zot Championship where the Stellar Nursery Society comes out, then I would suggest that you may want to shut off this video, because there will be spoilers with regards to the things that happen at that point. However, again, if you're okay with that, or if you have already read up to that point, then yeah, please join us and we could discuss some of the interesting things that this society has brought to this story. Okay, so with that, that is my spoiler alert, and as always, please watch at your discretion. So with regards to the Zot Championship, not only does it play a significant amount of story in the Last Order series, spanning almost 2/3 of the entire series, but it does play a tremendous impact in the story itself, for not only does it provide the avenue to which the main character, Alita, can reach her objective, but it also provides a tremendous amount of politics and conspiracies that span throughout the entire series. A tremendous amount of the world building is exposed through the Zot Championship, and it is through the actions that are occurring in the championship that one starts seeing the resolutions of what happens in the story evolve. Now within that, of course, there are a tremendous amount of adversaries and challengers that the main character's team, the Space Angels, encounter. But I think I am safe to say that within all of those battles, the first battle and the last battle seems to be some of the most prominent within the championship. And of course, one expects that the last battle, which is against the electromagnetic karate force, which consists of Zeka, Toji, Rakan, Taraba, and Tumpo, will be a significant battle, considering it is the finale. One finds that the first battle that they encountered was very memorable. And probably it's because of the significant impact that came from the challenging team that they encountered, which of course was the Stellar Nursery Society. And right from the start, even before the tournament began, you started getting an understanding of just how interesting this group of babysitters or nannies turns out to be, through the very first encounter that Alita has at the restaurant the day or the night before the actual championship begins. Now, for the people who have not read Battle Angel Alita, Last Order, or Mars Chronicle, you have to understand that in this comic verse, children are not particularly well treated. It is a group that is easily exploitable, and it is one of the reasons why, of course, even in the real world, there's a tremendous amount of effort done to protect them. But, of course, in the comic verse, because there is so much chaos and anarchy throughout the entire cosmos, there are many incidents where that exploitation of children can be taken advantage of. And of course, you see it even in the early parts of the original series when you see somebody like Gruishka, manhandling that little baby Koyomi in the very early parts of the chapter. But it becomes a lot more evident as you start reading Last Order, and it becomes really evident when you go into Alita's origin story in Mars Chronicle. And so this, of course, sets up a wonderful situation for why the Stellar Nursery Society exists. And in return, the Stellar Nursery Society provides a means for which the reader starts understanding just how much exploitation there is to children in this comic verse. Now, the Stellar Nursery Society, from what I can understand, is an independent, autonomous organization that is free from any of the governments. In that way, it's similar to the original Grünthal or the Panzerkunst Academy, in that it was not affiliated with any of the governments. And its purpose was to rescue the children from those oppressive incidents. And so, as much as they are babysitters, they are also crusaders that go into some very dangerous situations to save the children from a potentially deadly situation. And so the Stellar Nursery Society turns out to be a very interesting group in that they are basically nannies. They will be changing the diapers of babies, running around, playing around with the kids. But at the same time, as you can even see from this image that I have here of the gun troll, which is their school bus, or what they call their nursery bus, and what they call their assault landing vehicle, ALV, you can understand that this group is not your typical babysitting organization. And of course, Alita finds this out firsthand the night before the Zot Championship at the restaurant. For at that restaurant, of course, the children from the Stellar Nursery Society comes in to have dinner. And just like children, they turn the restaurant into a Chuck E. Cheese sort of center, which of course annoys a lot of the other patrons. But you also get some idea of, again, the oppression that goes on because some of the Venusians who seized the children have heard from, rumors in places that probably we don't want to know about, that children turn out to be, or the flesh of children turn out to be very tasty ingredients for a lot of dishes. And so the Venusians, wanting to see if that was true, decide to send their henchmen out to collect a few of these children to take back to the kitchen and turn them into very scrumptious meals. And of course, since Alita has just come to the Zot Championship after her incident at the Leviathan ship, where she saw her recently befriended child, not child of hers, of course, but orphan, named Jiro, get killed in a battle game, a war game, and was very sensitive to the exploitation of children, you could understand that Alita became very sensitive to the situation. And so, of course, she kindly goes to the Venusians and asks them to see if they can hold off on creating dishes from these children. And of course, it is returned with a blunt eye, I guess, or a blunt ear, which of course makes Alita even more aggressive. And that is when the Stellar Nursery Society does step in, and the first thing they do is, before Alita can even figure it out, they somehow force Alita to sit down and tell her to actually cool off while they go gather the children to take them back to their table. Yes, somehow a Panzerkunst master was forcefully sat down by a babysitter who then gathered the children to take them back. Think about those teachers that you saw in your daycare center if you had kids of your own. And think about one of those teachers being able to manhandle a special operations officer without even batting an eye. And of course, the Venusian enforcers, who become very annoyed with having the ingredients taken away from them, of course, go to try to take the children back. And that is when they find out that, again, these are no ordinary babysitters, and they are a force to be reckoned with. In fact, each member of the Stellar Nursery Society, I would say, can easily take out someone like Gruishka in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. And even the weakest member, which I would think is Saya, here has enough martial arts capability that she can hold her own against the giant enforcers from Venus. And of course, we find out that her martial arts technique is Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. Now, the reason for the Stellar Nursery Society to even be entering the Zot Championship is due to a situation that they found themselves in. And that was basically the annihilation of their home base. And this happened most likely due to an incident resulting from probably one of their infiltration and rescue missions. But it possibly can also be due to ulterior motive that was planned to bring the Stellar Nursery Society to the Zot Championship in order for them to face the Space Angels. That is hard to say, but knowing who leads the Stellar Nursery Society, which I'll talk about later, this could be one possibility as well. But for whatever reason, the military forces of the Jupiter Union gathered around the Stellar Nursery Society base, and with their sheer military might just blasted that school. Kids and all, trying to take him out. And it was during a time when the gun troll just happened to be out on possibly a mission and just coming back, when they saw that their base was being attacked. And it was during this attack that the readers once again got a chance to see just how heroic the people in the Stellar Nursery Society were when they saw a gentleman named Labe, if I remember, who was the one nanny that stayed behind to guard the nursery, decide to save the children at the cost of his own life. Now, Labe is technically a railman. That is his profession and his skill. And a railman is a person who uses and manipulates what is called a rail suit, a type of exoskeleton that contains rail guns. And not only is it there to be able to launch projectiles that can take down enemy ships, but also it can be used to project and transport material and payloads to ships that are in space. So what Labe decides to do is to pack all the young children into escape pods and, using his rail suit, launch them towards the gun troll, who of course successfully collects them. But in so doing, he leaves himself vulnerable, and of course he dies when the Stellar Nursery Society base explodes. And so with their base gone, and basically with the Jupiter Republic on their butt, and really no place else to go, they decide to go and enter the Zot Championship with the objective of winning the event, so that if they do so, they could basically get amnesty from all of these nations or planets that were potentially out targeting them. And yes, that can be possible because the Zot Championship is something that's very much different from what you typically see in a lot of these shonen comics. This isn't like a lot of these power tournaments where the main character can use it to level up their skills or, show the readers just how powerful they are. I mean, there is some of that in this championship, of course, but it's actually a much more political event. You see, after the Terraformer Wars, Ladder and the neighboring colonies felt that they were hoping that something like this would never repeat itself. And so they created the Zot Championship, not only to, show the world, like the Olympics, who are the strongest contenders in the solar system, but also it gave each one of these colonies and Earth the chance to showcase their latest military equipment, because the contenders that joined from those specific colonies or Earth were equipped with the latest military gear. And so you could think of the Zot Championship as a controlled war sort of situation that gave the planets the ability to challenge each other without having to go to a true war that can cause a tremendous amount of lives lost and collateral damage. And by winning the Zot Championship, any of these colonies or planets would have a strong advantage for any negotiations for future treaties to come up. And so this turned out to be one of those methods to which each one of these nations can gain political power by winning the Zot Championship. And of course, the Zot Championship was open to any other independent entrants, possibly not only to spotlight independent military forces, but also to for each of the colonies to see that there were other military resources that were potentially available for hire if they wanted to. And so it was a logical choice for the Stellar Nursery Society to feel that if they could win the Zot Championship, that they would receive amnesty, because not only would a lot of the colonies favor or take value in their capabilities, but also no colony would test the risk of, violating the rules of the championship by trying to take out the champions. Even the great power of the Jupiter Union wouldn't go that far to risk, political unrest. And so in that objective, the Stellar Nursery Society decided to join the Zot Championship, and through fate, their first challengers turned out to be the Space Angels, including Alita. Now, upon realizing that this team will be the first team that the Space Angels will encounter in battle, this creates a major dilemma within Alita. For, of course, Alita understands that every tournament within the Zot Championship is basically a battle to the death. And knowing who her opponent were, and understanding that if she defeats them, there is a major potential for the children to once again become orphans, that she had a very difficult time, a conflict in entering the battle. And yet if she did not enter the battle, then she would not be able to reach the objectives that she needed to get to. And she would also potentially endanger all of her teammates because they could not rely on her as support. And so this once again creates a major dilemma. Does she fight? Doesn't she fight? Will she choose to become the monster that she is? Is being a fighter really choosing to become a monster? And that creates a lot of dilemma within her. And since she is in that phase when her guilt is personified through the identity of Colonel Payne, that guilt feeling torments her mercilessly. But of course, outside of Alita, it doesn't seem to affect any of the other characters. And in fact, for Zex, he gets extremely riled up and excited for the fact that he gets a chance to take on such a formidable opponent. And for him, since being a warrior is the important objective, for him to reach the identity that he's always tried to get, that he becomes very excited to go into battle against them. And my gosh, what battles we see during that event. However, aside from the amazing action, which I'll kind of leave it up to you to read if you want to find out and have not yet, it does become not only a character development for Alita, but it also becomes a character development for Zex. For it is through the Space Nursery Society that Zex finally asks the question, what is it to be a warrior? Why does one fight? And up till this point, he did it for the sake of identity. It was the only thing he could think of and the only thing he was good at that gave him the ability to separate himself from the original AR identity, which was basically a copy of Alita. And since he was always desperately trying to get away from that to reach, an identity of his own, he never really questioned why he fought and thought that fighting was the only reason to create a warrior. However, it was only through the battles that he had against the Stellar Nursery Society where he was questioned by them for the reason to fight. And of course, when he saw the Stellar Nursery Society, he understood that for them, the reason to fight was the children. And each one of these volunteers who joined the nursery did so out of the understanding that it was an extremely risky venture that they will have to fight, but they believed in the purpose of the nursery so much that they decided to go do that. And it was at this point that Zex started asking himself again, what does it mean to be a warrior? And through his soul searching, and interestingly enough, his personification of Zazie, he finally understood what people like the nursery stood for, which is that fighting for the sake of fighting just makes you a killer. What makes you a warrior is fighting for a cause that you absolutely believe in and you absolutely commit to and you sacrifice your life for. And of course, since Zazie is equally of that sort of commitment to the Mars Kingdom Parliament and the safety of Queen Limera, he was starting to finally understand what it meant to be a warrior and how he had steered himself away from that purpose by just challenging people to fight and to kill. And so this gave finally Zex the ability to understand that by looking for a purpose to fight, that it made him the warrior and made him the identity that he always wanted to be. And since he was a member of the Space Angels and they had their own objectives, such as the independence of Iron City, that he decided to take on those commitments himself. Whether he believed them in or not, he wasn't sure, but I think he believed in Alita's cause enough that he would, for the moment, take that challenge. And of course, Zex becomes a pillar of strength for the Space Angels as he takes on the majority of the battles to get to the finale. But as much of a pillar of strength as it is, there is a limitation to even how far he can go. And of course, that is shown when we are introduced to Kutsang. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name. But my gosh, she is an amazing fighter. So Kutsang is of course the senior nanny of the Stellar Nursery Society, and she is a master of the martial art called Ahat Mastara, which is a zero-gravity version of the Chinese martial arts Baguazhang, or the 8-trigram palm. And wow, yeah, yeah, her battle with Zex is pretty impressive, to the point where, yeah, Zex is just being completely manhandled by Kutsang. And wow, the battle is brutal. There really isn't much that Zex can do in this entire battle, and Kutsang is completely on the offensive until she finally takes him down. And of course, the destruction of Zex, or watching the destruction of Zex, is the important trigger for Alita to be able to overcome her insecurities and bring that determination to the game. And oh my gosh, she brings that determination to the game, because if Kutsang's actions of destroying Zex were impressive, oh wow, Alita does Saitama on Kutsang. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's a matter of seconds in which Alita takes that master martial artist down. And this provides the reader, a way of finding just how much Alita has advanced in her Panzerkunst abilities, because she's not using any of her special powers or her Imaginos capability. This is straight out and out martial arts. And this is a lady opponent who just took down one of the strongest characters in the Battle Angel universe of Zex, right? I mean, Zex is a far, far superior version of AR number 6. And of course, AR number 6 was strongest of the ARs who were at least at the capability of Alita at the final chapters of the original series. So, considering how much stronger Zex was to his AR counterpart, and considering how the AR counterparts were equivalent to Alita that was far superior in capability than the one that was in the movie, the anime, or the first few chapters of the manga, watching Zex get annihilated with Cute Sang and then watching Alita annihilate that same Cute Sang really gave the readers indication of just how far Alita has come. And as they say, there is always a greater fish in the sea. This, of course, triggers the leader of the Stellar Nursery Society to come out. And oh my gosh, yes, the battle once again turns its tide towards them. When the leader of the Stellar Nursery Society, Kairula Sanguis, appears to battle for the first time in the comic verse. Yes, she has come out earlier and she has had a few discussions, and yeah, she kicked around a few guards. But we never ever got a chance to see just how formidable a fighter she was. Yes, we knew somewhat that she was because she was well known to Agambadi. She was already informed to the readers that she was a vampire, and she was said to be a good fighter. But we didn't realize just how strong she was until she then turned around and just beat the crap out of Alita. To the point where if Kairula Sanguis didn't become impressed with Alita as a warrior, there was a good possibility that Alita would have died during the tournament. Of course, she has died many times within the tournament by other people's hands, so I don't know if that would have been a significant thing, but it definitely left a great impact to Alita, considering that this was probably the most influential battle she was in after Jashigun. And of course, I have already mentioned in other videos just how important this battle with Kairula Sanguis was to not only Alita's persona and character building by giving her the self-confidence necessary to move forward, but also from a plot perspective, because this is the pivotal battle where she receives the Fata Morgana, which of course unlocks the ability for her eventually to meet with Merlin. And this of course not only raises her capabilities, gets her to the final objective of Last Order, but also gives her the ability to become the Last Order agent that gives her the segue to go into the Mars Chronicles stories. And so of course, not only is the Stellar Nursery Society in general, and Kairula Sanguis in particular, important to Alita's evolution, but it's important to the evolution of the story itself. Now, as for the fate of the Stellar Nursery Society, we know that eventually, although they do not win the Zot Championship and they're eliminated in the first round, it impresses a certain queen of Mars enough to the point where she gives them amnesty and shelter. And of course, with that happening, that provides them the ability to get away from the people who were pursuing them. And not only that, but it gives the story the ability to have the Stellar Nursery Society and of course Kairula Sanguis come in to the stories in Mars Chronicle because they are now so closely associated with Queen Limera and the Mars Kingdom Parliament. And so currently, they are not only being babysitters and nannies, but they are helping the Queen investigate several of the interesting mysteries that are going on in Mars, including the motives and plots that are being created by the same. And I got a feeling that with the status of their chairman, Karula Sanguis, being in an unknown situation at this time, that we are going to be treated to seeing a lot more of the Stellar Nursery Society as the story goes on. And considering the fact that Zex was so impressed with the SNS that he decided to become one of them, and I'm not exactly sure if he is a teacher or one of the kids, considering that he is technically only 2 years old. And yeah, both Cutesang and Kairula call him the kindergartner. It will be another way for the author to bring Zex back into the story as well. So I am looking forward to seeing the field operatives of the Stellar Nursery Society come to Mars to investigate what has happened to their leader. But in any case, I did want to talk about this very interesting orphanage and to open this up for discussion. So what do you think about the Stellar Nursery Society? Did you find them to be very curious and very influential to the story? And if you could leave your comments, I would appreciate it as always. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. And I'll continue on with more Battle Angel Alita videos in the future, and I hope you join me at that time. And until the next episode, happy comic reading, happy anime watching, and as always, have a nice day, everyone.